everyone. Welcome back to Fika AI. I'm your host, Allison Cosette. We're sponsored by Neo4j, and we are here today with Scott Stevenson, the CEO of Deepgram.
Hello.
Thanks for coming. I'm super excited about this. So for folks in the audience who, how could they possibly not have heard of Deepgram? I know you guys have a longer history, so tell people what you all are about.
Yeah, so we're an audio AI company, and we build APIs so that folks can build amazing speech products. And we've been doing it now for almost 9 years. And so we were one of the original batch of like end-to-end deep learning AI companies, like starting around the same time as OpenAI and all of that. And yeah, we've been, for the first 4 years or so, we were like quietly working on building everything up, but then we released a product about 5 years ago, and now it's been really amazing how everything has taken off. Real-time speech-to-text is our biggest product, but now we have text-to-speech as well, so you can do the full conversation. And just in the last like 6 months, conversational AI with audio has gotten down to like a third of a second, half a second like response time. And so yeah, we're really happy to see that, and yeah, that's what everybody at Deepgram works on, you know, and we're excited about. And I came from a particle physics background straight into this world, and so
I hear there's something about the name of the company that's associated with that. Is that true?
Sure, yeah. So Deepgram, oh man, there's a couple things there, but I'll keep it short. So we were deep underground while we were thinking about the first versions of how to build this. So I was 2 miles underground, basically in a James Bond lair in China.
Wow.
And yeah, we're right next to the world's tallest dam where it was being constructed, and we were in a tunnel that's a 17-kilometer long tunnel where we put our experiment to shield it away from cosmic radiation that is raining down from the atmosphere. By the way, we're radioactive. Everything is radioactive. Everything we eat is radioactive. But so you want to get away from that as much as possible. The way you do that is you run underground, essentially. And so we built this detector there, and we used AI all over the place in order to do our analysis. But while we were there and the experiment was running, we thought, man, it's so cool what we get to do. And it's only like 5 people like underground. Yeah. And we're thinking, man, there should be a documentary crew or something about this. Yeah. But we weren't going to do that ourselves. But what we would do is build a little device that records audio all day, every day. And so we did that, just a battery-powered device, put it in your pocket, records audio all the time. And we ended up with a huge pile of audio from that. And that's what actually got us thinking, like, hang on a second.
We're sitting on a massive training data here.
Yeah, there's a bunch of data here. Is there some product out there that can ingest it? And we're like scientists that are thinking there definitely has to be, because what we were working on just as scientists underground, as just physicists, we were, not computer scientists or anything like that. What we were doing was end-to-end deep learning based on waveforms. It looked a lot like audio.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so we were like, hey, there has to be a product out there in the world. So we went looking for it. Yeah. And we didn't find it, basically. This is 2015, 2014. Yeah. And it was like the days of nuance and, that kind of thing. We couldn't believe that was the case. And once we went around and, literally checked with some of the big speech labs and said, hey, are you guys working on end-to-end deep learning? Can we get access to it? And they said, no, that's stupid. That'll never work. And we were like, okay, we're starting a company. Yeah, we're starting a company. So that was 9 years ago now. Yeah.
So how does it feel to be someone who was in the AI space before the AI age, a.k.a. life after the release of public release of GPT-3?
Yeah.
So what was that transition like? Because as someone who was also in deep learning long before this, there was a moment there. So what was that like for you all?
One of the probably the biggest thing is finally.
Yeah.
I mean, because you could see it just happening everywhere. You can see it all being stitched together, but you knew it wasn't quite ready for prime time yet because it took a lot of expertise to get it working. But once the APIs started to fit together like Lego blocks, and then you can build things really quickly, then it was like, oh, okay, it's here. So I figured, just estimating when we started the company, I figured it would probably take like 7 years or so for that to happen. Yeah. But it took about, 8 or 9. Yeah. So only, 20, 30% off, but yeah, I was thinking finally. I was hoping it would happen faster, obviously, but it took a couple more years than we expected. But as soon as it started happening, it's like internally in the company, we're like, okay, guys, it's here.
Yeah.
Everybody is realizing that this is happening. And also, by the way, it's not like some of the other hypes out there where you get a spike and then it turns off and then maybe it never comes back.
No,
that is not this one.
This is a pivotal shift.
Yeah, this is electricity turned on and it's never turning off.
Agreed.
Transportation turned on, it's never turning off.
Yep.
The internet turned on, it's never turning off. AI turned on, it's never turning off.
Exactly.
So yeah, now it's like, okay, game on. We're in this position to like help people in the audio space. So let's make sure to rise to the occasion. So that's how we were thinking about it.
That's great.
What about you guys?
I mean, we, like everyone else, like we come from the database space, right? And so for us, the data science that's been sitting on top of Graph has always been, very unique to Graph.
Yep.
But like everybody else, we have a tool that helps move the entire piece forward, right? So, for us, we are showing you how to do, say, GraphRag, or how to leverage your understanding of your unstructured data and knowledge graphs and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting to me, like with you folks, how we now have this ecosystem where there's so much interplay.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
I was going to ask you something else. So when... And I don't know if you can answer this question, but one of the things that I'm always really curious about coming from the data science side is really around the training data. So I know you started out with your own internal training data. What does that look like for you all now?
Yeah, the internal training data is still like the golden data, basically. Okay, but it's still also more like the finishing, on when you're. It's the final step to making sure your model is like amazing.
Right.
So if you, because that type of data is like really expensive.
Yeah.
And so you can't say, hey, we're going to label 50 million hours of that. It's about $100 an hour. You're talking many billions of dollars in order to label that data, and then many years in order to do it.
Yeah.
You think, okay, how can we be precise about the data that we label? Make sure it's super effective in making the model better, and then make sure it's like very, very accurate. And then you can do a smaller amount of it, and then you mix it in with synthetic data. You mix it in with data that you can buy from data providers. And you mix it in with public data, and but that last piece of the data that we label in-house, we have our own team. We have our own data labeling tools where we dog food our own tools. So our speech to text feeds into those tools to make them more efficient while they're labeling. And so it's more like an editing job rather than a labeling job. But that data is the gold data that produces the really amazing models. So,
got it.
Yeah.
That's also the thing. I mean, that I think people are just starting to realize too is. You can have massive amounts of data, and it's not just that it's garbage in, garbage out, but for me, I'm really curious about sort of the niche language models and the very specific applications. So do you folks see that in your future as well, or how does that play into what you guys are working on?
Yeah, so we started out when, around 5 years ago when we first released the product, we released it saying we are going to do adaptable models, so it's not just one size fits all. You better hope our model is good for your data, or sorry. No, we have ways to cheaply, very quickly make a world-class model for any domain.
Yeah.
And part of that is the team that is labeling data at Deepgram. Part of that is the synthetic data techniques.
Yeah.
Part of that is just doing it for 9 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then also there's an engineering component to that, which is I know a lot of people ask this question about, isn't that like hard to manage all those models, right? Do you have to stand up all these GPUs, and what about all the languages, and what about the whatever? Well, the important thing there is all these models don't have to be running all the time in all places.
Right.
You can swap them in and out if you engineer for it, and the bandwidth in GPUs is really high. You can swap models in and out of, and so it's totally possible to do all of that, and but it's really hard to do. But if you work on it for
9 years,
a decade, and you start building the company with that in mind from the beginning, then it's not so bad. You're built exactly for that, and which is a very B2B use case.
Yeah.
Consumer can get away with like one size fits all models and have it like cost a lot and be a loss leader and that kind of thing. But B2B can't. They have massive scale and they need it specific to what they're doing. And so then, you have lots of adaptable models everywhere. Yeah.
What do you find is the biggest misconception among your new customers?
It changes every year.
What's happening right now?
Yeah, let me think. So I think the biggest thing right now, man, the most 6 months ago, it was that this is all going to be cheap. They thought, I don't know why, but they thought like, oh, they didn't quite think about the efficacy cost trade-off. All the costs of the models are going to go to zero, et cetera. It's like, wait, hang on a second. You want your models to get more and more effective, right?
Right.
So they're going to get larger and they're going to get more expressive and that kind of thing. So really what you have to think about is the price point that makes sense for R&D.
Yes.
And then what are you trying to replace? So for instance, if you want to hire a human to work the phone at a call center, you're typically going to pay like $2 to maybe $6 an hour in the Philippines or India to do that. So your price point has to be somewhere in that range or lower,
right.
For everything. And so, for everything, for text to speech, for speech to text, for your RAG system, for your databases, for your, all of it, for your LLM under the hood. And so when folks think like, hey, it's going to be, really easy to host this ourselves, we'll just use open source models, well, all be super cheap.
That was going to be my next question. We'll get to that.
Yeah, and then it's like, well, there are great open source models out there. You can get different pieces of each. They don't have the finishing touch of that extra data that I was just talking about that makes the models just that much better for your domain. But then you start to put all of your best engineers on making all these systems work. And now you have this cost associated with just running your AI systems.
Yeah.
And I like to equate it to, do you design your own CPUs? Do you design your own memory? Do you design your own motherboards?
Yeah.
Why would you do that as a tech company, right? So you have to think about that from an AI perspective. But I get it, because technical people, and I'm a technical person, it's fun to build this stuff, right? And you get to be the hero in all these different spots. And like, I highly recommend people to go do that. But then once you start to balance and run all these things together, then you start to realize like, hang on a second, I want my best people working on something that is cutting edge, that pushes our product and our business forward, not something that's already going to be solved by others in the infra space. So, yeah, that's probably the biggest, is just that.
No, I
could build it myself,
sure.
That kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you find that all the time where, I mean, in any type of organization where you don't have people working at the top of their ability or cognition, right? We're always looking to, and that's sort of the driver behind so much of this is let's automate the easy things so that we can have people doing the things you need the human for.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
But I think bringing it to this point, I was at a conference and somebody said the other day, oh, well, aren't you concerned with these open source models that eventually it's going to drive down the price and the value of all of these companies? And they were talking to a bunch of VCs, and they said, and the VCs were like, no, and they were basically saying exactly what you said, which is two things. One, you're still going to have that quality. People are still going to pay for that top, gold standard, and we're just going to be using it more.
Yep.
Right? We're going to be using it more and more.
Yep.
We have a whole generation, like my children, growing up in a space where this is just how you do things.
Yep.
I mean, my kids used GPT like back in Christmas of 2022, saying like, oh, let's write some Christmas stories about elves in Vermont, right? And it wasn't much longer after that. My son is like, Mom, can this help me with my homework? And then I taught him all about fact checking.
Yes.
And so,
which you have to do with humans too, right?
Exactly. I mean, he was in 7th grade, but it was pretty interesting. So it's really curious to me, like when people say, oh, and not that there's anything wrong with open models and open source, right? But we do have to recognize that there are different use cases. And there's going to be different tolerance levels. Right? If you're in a high risk situation, you're going to need a better model. Right?
Let me be clear about open source. It's amazing. It drives the world forward very
100%.
quickly, right? And you can stand up a lot of different things and check it out, figure out how it all works. It also is a great way to train people up in this area. So, like, go contribute to open source products or projects. Go start your own, etc. Right? But you have to think later on when the shine is gone, right? When you're like, hey, these AI models are really expensive to train. They're really hard to keep going. Other people keep making them faster and faster and better and better and whatnot. How am I going to keep up? Like when the honeymoon is over, right? Like now, take the knowledge that you have from using the open source ones and then go find like the best provider so you can go take your time and work on the next thing that has the shine.
Exactly. I love it. So the last question I like to roll up on people is 2 questions, actually. One is, when you look towards the future, is there something that you're either really excited about that's coming either on the near or long-term horizon, or something that you're really curious about? I have no idea what the impact of that is going to be.
I have 2 answers. One is one is fairly quick, which is right now the way the AI systems work with the Lego blocks fitting together, they don't really pass context between them, and that is going to be solved in the next year or 2. And when that is solved, AI systems are going to become superhuman, basically. And that is going to be amazing. So you'll be able to have a conversation, you'll be able to order something, you'll be able to do it all like way more pleasant than if you had to take up somebody else's time and ask them for their help.
Right.
You know, you'll be able to cut to the point and have it all like just taken care of really quickly. And so I think that's one of the biggest things. I don't know if we should take up the time on the other one, but yeah.
What's the other one?
So I don't know if okay. So I'm
Come
excited.
on,
I'm excited
Scott,
about.
let it roll.
I'm excited about the physical world.
Tell me.
Okay. So most people here, you know, et cetera, like in San Francisco, et cetera, are like really software focused, right? But and there will be a massive software explosion of AI. And it will infiltrate into the standard ways that we utilize it now on your phone screen, on your computer, your iPad, you know, kiosks, all sorts of stuff, right? But I think there's going to be a new hardware, and I want to be clear. This hardware will also grow a lot. I'm not talking chip manufacturers and that kind of thing. That's definitely going to happen, okay? But I'm talking about just like devices, new ways to interact, et cetera. Things that were impossible before that needed a press or text, you know, typing or something in order to do it. You're not going to need to do that anymore. And so, yeah, what are you going to carry around in your pocket? What glasses are you going to be wearing? What medallion are you going to have on? What watch are you going to have on? You know, there's going to be just like ambient AI, but it's going to be a hardware revolution that makes that happen. You know, that is enabled by the software revolution in AI. So, and we'll all have a behavior change. You know, just like before, you're like, oh, I need to learn something. I need to look something up. You're like, I'll go to the card catalog at the library. Right? Now you're like, I go to the keyboard and
exactly.
Google. In the future, you'll just talk to your AI friend wherever it is. I don't know where it's going to be, your glasses, or you know, whatever it is. Just as if you're talking to, you know, a very intelligent person that was sitting next to you, and you say, hey, can you tell me about that thing?
Yes.
You know? So I think hardware is going to enable that. So yeah.
Got it. Have you seen Beacon 23?
No.
Oh, yeah.
I have to.
I mean,
noted.
I think it's interesting.
Okay.
But in it, like, they have their personal AIs, right?
Yeah.
Like going back to the Star Trek Data kind of deal. Yeah. But I think it's really interesting.
Yeah.
We were joking earlier. Some of my coworkers took a Waymo last night.
Yeah.
And so what I want to know is, when are you going to be able to choose your holographic driver for your Waymo?
Absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
I want to be able to choose my celebrity driver in my Waymo. So if anybody out there is at Waymo and works in holograms, that's what I'm looking for.
There are holographic displays that work now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want them in my Waymo.
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah.
I
want Jan LeCun driving my Waymo.
Yes. It's gonna be wild in the next 5 years, because I think a good way to look at what's happening right now is there was a 2,000 year revolution for agricultural, so like an agricultural revolution.
Yep.
And then the next revolution was the industrial revolution. Took about 250, 300 years, something like that. Then the next revolution was the information revolution. Took about 75 years.
Yeah.
You know, and the next revolution is the intelligence revolution. It's probably going to take 25, 30 years. And we're already like 5 years into it.
Yep.
You know, but think back to tech companies. Everybody's like, oh, tech companies, they move so fast, right? That was the information revolution. AI companies have to move 3 times faster now.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so the speed at which things came out before is going to come out 3 times faster now. And so everybody's just like, we get to soak it all up, you know. Yeah. And there will probably be like a biological revolution, you know, starting like 10 years from now or something, enabled by AI. So yeah, it's gonna be cool.
You're gonna have to watch the interview I did with Damien yesterday. Damien Murphy. Yeah.
Yeah. He went to town.
Yeah. We were talking about the bounds of humanity in the physical form. So if you haven't seen that one, Damien is also part of Deepgram, so you can check that one out as well.
Yep.
Thank you so much. This has been great.
Yeah, it's been
I really
awesome.
appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Scott Stevenson, Deepgram.